Regina Celi, letare, alleluia, qui aquam meruisti portare, alleluia, resurrexit sicut dixit, alleluia.
Okay, so you guys might have heard about this. Apparently there's some sort of protest going on in Canada right now over vaccine mandates. And I know what you're thinking. It's really hard to believe that there are any Canadians capable of standing up to the government. But apparently there are. At least a lot of the truckers, they're really, I'll give them credit, they're really jamming up the works up there, blocking the roads, the bridges, shutting down the border in a couple of spots, really making Justin Trudeau, the King of Canada, really feel it over these vaccine mandates. But Justin Trudeau, again, the blackface wearing King of Canada, he went out in an interview recently and had an interesting theory about the cause to this whole thing, right? It wasn't his policies, right? It wasn't his vaccine mandate, and I'm not giving medical advice, and I have to say that I'm not giving medical advice lest we be ripped off of YouTube in a heartbeat. But no, it wasn't about his vaccine mandates. No. It's my fault. It's your fault. It's the American people's fault. It's the alt-right's fault. So what did he say? This morning I had a direct call. Wait, sorry, let me do this as Trudeau would say it. This morning I had a direct call with President Biden to talk about our shared challenges at the border, eh? I updated him on the situation, particularly in Windsor, We discussed the American and indeed the global influences on the protest, eh? We talked about the US-based flooding of the 9/11 phone lines in Ottawa, the presence of US citizens in the blockades, and the impact of foreign money to fund this illegal activity, eh? So apparently it's the American people's fault for funding this and joining in these protests and voicing local support over these protests as well. It's our fault, it's not his fault. That is such a Canadian thing to do. And I rag on Canada. Why? Well, one, because it's really easy to make fun of Canadians. And two, I mean, let's not pretend that the people running that country have any sort of respect for the American people. CNN itself had up an article not so long ago titled, "Even Canadians Fear U.S. Democracy Could End Soon." Right? The United States is coming to an end. The question is how? Those are the jarring opening lines of Canadian author Stephen March's new book, The Next Civil War, Dispatches from the American Future, released the same week as the anniversary of the January 6th attack on our capital that signaled how dangerous our political polarization has become. And, you know, I guess my main point on all of this is that, one, the people running Canada are absolutely, completely insane and incapable of holding themselves accountable on any level whatsoever, incapable of holding any sort of standard to themselves whatsoever. And two, just to highlight the sycophantic love affair that leftists, that Democrats have with socialist communist countries. If you were to look at the coverage of these protests from places like CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, what you would see is them actively siding with the Canadian government right now, calling these truckers terrorists. Oh, you know, there's been no violence yet, but that doesn't mean that these things are peaceful, right? I guess they just blocked the summer of 2020 out of their minds completely as billions of dollars of property damage occurred at the BLM riots, not protest, riots. But no, these protests are really bad. The Canadian government is really good. We need to take their opinions of the U.S. very seriously. And my question is why? I never understood the left's insistence that we need to, one, care about the opinions of foreign countries, and two, that a socialist communist government is really the right government to begin with. If you actually believe that, that's where you'd be living. But you don't. You live in America, where you thrive on capitalism and individual freedom, right? All the while trying to compromise both capitalism and individual freedom, right? But why do we need to worry ourselves with the opinions of Canadians? Why? Because they're doing these experts at democracy, these geniuses of freedom, these people who are arresting priests for holding mass during COVID while letting the pot shop stay open. These people who are arresting parents for not honoring their child's pronouns, right? Who are arresting comedians for making jokes about trans people, right? These people who are attempting to jail truckers for peacefully protesting, for refusing to take a vaccine. These are the people that we need to worry about. These are the people we need to live up to. If things were so great in Canada, and how come tens of thousands of Canadians every single year hop the border into the US to get excellent medical care? It's because Canada's a joke. It's always been a joke. The people running it are a joke. Their accents are very, very funny. But no, this is just absolutely insane. And I will say honestly, I am greatly disappointed. I'm very happy that the protests are going on right now. They are an objectively good thing. And it is objectively good that these protests have all been peaceful. All right. I will say I am extraordinarily disappointed. If I were to give my own opinion on a foreign country, I am extraordinarily disappointed that they haven't occurred sooner, right? I mean, this has been going on for 2 years now. They've arrested pastors for holding mass. They've been arresting parents for not honoring their child's perceived pronouns, right? They've been arresting comedians. They've been shutting down actively shutting down and barring free speech and freedom of association and freedom of religion. Right, that ridiculous law that they were looking at passing, right, that essentially says that any form of teaching that says that heterosexuality is the natural form of sexuality, and it is the natural form. How do I know that? Because there's only one way to procreate, and that is for a man and a woman to get together and make love. Right? There's no other way you get a baby out of that situation without the pieces of a man and a woman. So heterosexuality is absolutely the natural sexuality of the human race. But to teach that is now a form of conversion therapy, and you could lose your non-charity status and you could go to jail for teaching that in a religious setting in Canada right now. But these are the people we need to look up to. Or alternatively, we can tell them to go to hell. We can continue to support the people who actually love freedom and live in Canada and are fighting for it right now. And we could tell the left that, hey, you got a year and a half of cities on fire, of businesses on fire, of churches on fire, calling it peaceful the whole time. So no, you don't get to report on this and pretend that you give a shit about anything like violence, like freedom, or like general, honesty, decency, and journalistic integrity. You don't care about any of those things. We don't have to listen to you. We're not listening to you. We're not listening to you. And that's something that CNN just can't grasp, right? They can't understand why we aren't listening to leftist journalists, right? They can't understand why people are turning into Joe Rogan, right? It makes their brains hurt. They just can't understand it. They can't understand it. But I have a visual medium here I wanted to share with you, explaining how a leftist mind works, right? So, this has been in the news for a while now, right? The Joe Rogan controversy coming under fire at Spotify, and Brian Stelter getting out there and saying, Joe Rogan, he just wings it. Why is anybody listening to this guy instead of a reputable news agency, right? And that's because of this. What this little flower is inside the box, that is the human mind. Okay? That is the human mind. Now, when you do this right? You think outside the box. You open up this little box, you let the sun in, the flower grows. How do you do that? Again, you think outside the box. You have a willingness to sit down, as Joe Rogan does, with people from all sides of the political aisle, and you have intelligent conversations with them in order to learn their perspective, in order to gain new information, in order to grow your own intellect and your own intellect and your own understanding of the way the world works, right? You do that. You think outside the box. You grow your mind and your ability to complex problem solve and to be able to engage in empathy and understand people a little bit more, understand the world a little bit more. But what happens if you are so glued to the way that your mind works? What if you are so glued to that which you already know that you refuse to go out, refuse to engage in conversations with anybody else, especially people who disagree with you, when you are patently refusing to let go of your preconceived notions of the world and just label everyone and anyone who disagrees with you as a racist moron droog? Well, this is what happens. Your brain turns to dog shit because you never opened the box, you never let the sun in, and you never tried to grow as a person. You never tried to grow your understanding of the world. All you were interested in is your own opinion, which is junk. Their opinion is junk because they are incapable of putting themselves in anyone else's shoes. They are incapable of hearing facts they don't agree with. They are incapable of having rational debates and rational conversations. They are incapable of believing that anyone who doesn't agree with them, not because the person is evil and not because the person is still a good person, but they just disagree with them. They're incapable of believing that the person could disagree with them and not be racist and not be evil and not be an idiot, right? They are incapable of understanding that. They're incapable of opening that box, and their brain turns to dog shit, which is why they have morons like Don Lemon and Brian Stelter and formerly Chris Cuomo running things over at CNN. That's why. Good Lord. But with that little sanctimonious rant out of the way, let's move on.